I've been having some super interesting conversations with some people who are in a position to give me some insider information regarding prospecting, and there's a few things I think all of my followers should know. Every state in Australia is governed by different laws, so the laws in your state will probably be different, but still relevant to check. Even in your own country, if you're outside of Australia, there will be similar laws to this in place, and it's well worth knowing and understanding. You see, I got a call from, I need to keep them anonymous, an insider who has a vast knowledge of these laws and regulations, and they were concerned that I didn't understand the laws extensively, and they led me through over an hour-long conversation where I had the opportunity to not only discover some stuff myself, but I'm also concerned that it's going to put other people in danger of breaking these laws and opening themselves up to extremely large penalties. So it's best to educate as opposed to having to beg for forgiveness later. You come to help. Oh my word. What is this? We got her a new toy and she loves it. There are two different land management systems here in Victoria. Parks Victoria manages all your national parks. Earth Resources manages all of the other land like Crown land. Buy a miner's right or a prospecting license here in Victoria through Earth Resources. And you need one of those to prospect on Victorian national parks that are open to prospecting. And there is an extensive list right here of all of the parks that have areas in them that you're allowed to prospect in that are national park. I am in the Beechworth area. We scroll right down to the bottom of the Beechworth page, Fossicking and Prospecting, we go to that. And then we go down even further and we look for the map, Prospecting Area Maps. Beechworth Historic Park, Chiltern Mount Pilot National Park. And what that does is upload the latest map that gives you your designated prospecting areas. On the Earth Resources website, where you buy a prospecting license, you want to scroll down and you want to look at this section here. These are your responsibilities. And the idea here is to give you an overview of the laws that you are going to be beholden to under your prospecting license. And specifically for tonight, we want to look for this, Caring for Historic Heritage. It opens up a tab that has various links that all basically take you to the Heritage Victoria website, and it gives you different sets of information. Well worth a read. And for more than just a prospecting, fossicking point of view, it's a great resource for history articles. If you're a history buff or into that, they've got some fantastic tools on there that you might be interested in. But what isn't listed in this area here is this mapping tool up here. VicPlan is an interactive mapping system that gives you the state of Victoria and all of the historic areas that you need to be wary of. So we're going to come up to my area in and around Beechworth, and we're going to zoom in. Right now, there's nothing on them. What you want to do is come over to the layers list at the top here, scroll down, and there's a couple of heritage overlays we can add. So heritage and built form, and we want to scroll down a little bit more, and there's another heritage tab here. We're going to select both of those. And suddenly the map has areas on it that are marked in orange and in blue. Most of my fossicking is done in and around Reedy Creek. That is this section of creek right here. And you can see several blue areas. These blue areas denote heritage listed sites. Some sites will be circles like this, and some sites will be a little bit more specific like these squares and rectangles here. These predate the 2000s, so this is basically when GPS came in and they were able to get very accurate markings very easily, and this was just a generalized area before that date. I may be wrong on this little fact, but I believe blue is a local heritage site and orange is a like a statewide heritage site. So something that has significance to the state versus something that has significance to the local area. Now here's the thing that I am a little bit confused about. This section of creek right here, this green section here, is all designated prospecting zone. And we can see that because in the map over here that we downloaded off the Parks Victoria website that gives you your most up-to-date designated prospecting area, we can see that. Down here, prospecting permitted in designated areas only. And that is denoted by this little plus symbol and the darker, I'm colorblind, so I'm just going to go that that is a gray. It could be a different color. If we look at the map, we can clearly see here that this section is open for prospecting. And this mirrors the other map on Heritage Victoria. Now, if we zoom in just a little bit here, oh, I can't zoom in on this map, that's right, that is correct. Here's what we're looking for. CFA track, just here, CFA track, that is a road that comes down and meets the Woolshed Road here on Reedy Creek. You can see that the plus symbols continue throughout the entirety of it. And that section just there is what we're interested in. So we can see on this map from Parks Victoria, issued by Earth Resources, that that is a designated prospecting area. If we come back to this map, we can clearly see CFA track marked here, and we have a heritage area overlay directly on top of where there is a designated prospecting area. We have 3 governing bodies. 2 of them say that I'm allowed to prospect there. The people who create and issue the maps, and then Parks Victoria who manage the land, who then subsequently pass on those maps to give us prospectors an idea of where we can and cannot prospect. Yet Heritage Victoria has an overlay saying that that is a heritage site, and there's no mention of that on the prospecting maps. So I'm interested to know who overrules what. I would assume that Heritage Victoria would overrule the prospecting area. That's what I would assume, knowing what I know today. But there's no mention of that on those maps. And like I said, they're given to us by our governing bodies. So there's no direct, clear indication that is the case. It's a little bit confusing for us prospectors. Especially when you consider something else that Heritage Victoria has in place for their laws. If we go to the Heritage Victoria website, which is linked in the Fossicking Rules and Responsibilities on Earth Resources, we can come to the fees and penalties page. And we're going to scroll down until we find a list of penalties here, and we're going to go down to archaeological offences and open that tab. Here we can see a list of different offences, and I'm going to run through some of them, but I'm going to make sure that I go through one other important fact before we do so. Heritage Victoria is responsible for some of our most significant sites in our state. They do some extremely important work when it comes to looking after our heritage, our history of the nation that is being built and has been built in the past. So these laws make sense when you put them into context around developers who want to demolish land and rip up Aboriginal heritage sites and rip up, you know, early European settlement and some serious history that we shouldn't forget, such as the penal colonies that were here in Australia. And that responsibility is made ever harder by the fact that there are a lot of sites that are not known to Heritage Victoria. You have to remember you're dealing with archaeological sites here. Sometimes you don't know they're there until you accidentally dig it up when you're doing your veggie patch. And so within that context, it makes perfect sense, and I understand why those guidelines are there. For example, trade or possession of an archaeological artifact. I mean, think about it. You're a greedy developer that doesn't have any morals or ethics, and you go and you bulldoze a period house and you pull out all the gold leaf wallpaper for your own profit. There's some serious negligence there. But that's not what we're talking about. There's a deeper underlying issue for prospectors, especially those of us who are metal detecting. This act here, these penalties, rely on a couple of triggers. And it's really simple. If it's over 75 years old, it's considered a potential archaeological and historically significant site, and therefore it needs to be registered with Heritage Victoria. And this is why the contact got in contact with me. I am working around a lot of mines, and so are a lot of other prospectors. Thousands of prospectors in Victoria go out and work around old mines. The problem is, as a prospector, we are more often than not in areas that predate the 75-year threshold. That means 1947 at this year's current date. And for the most part, it probably doesn't matter, right? Like, okay, you find a tiny scrape out in the middle of the bush. It's unlikely that there's going to be huge industry around that. But the problem for Heritage Victoria is you don't know that until you start digging. And what if you remove something that is majorly significant? What if you accidentally dig up something that belongs to a bushranger? What if you dig up something that solves some mystery from many years ago? What if it's the last known quartz kiln in the region, and because you're not capable of recognizing the foundation base of it, you disturb it? So from the eyes of Heritage Victoria, they're looking at trying to protect these sites from unwanted reckless damage. And at the moment, the laws in place are if you disturb or damage archaeological sites more than 75 years old, knowingly or negligently, you could be liable for a penalty. And that means that as detectorists, we have a rather complicated legal and ethical question, is that where can we detect? And one of the other things is failure to report archaeological discoveries. Now, that was the one that really took me by surprise, because I was unaware that that was even an obligation. I had no idea. This site or these penalties are not the thing that you get linked to from your prospecting and fossicking page on Earth Resources. It takes you to a different section of this website completely. I had to look this up on advisement from my insider. These are not well known or understood laws and obligations for most of the prospecting community, and I would be willing to bet that a lot of people like me would be very surprised to find out about them. I would hope that the organizations that govern these hobbies and these pastimes and take care of the land and also take care of our history would be willing to come to the table with people like myself and with people who are heavily involved within this hobby and the organizations such as the PMAV around it, to have an open, frank discussion that allows to the ultimate betterment of the regulations and the rules around it, as opposed to just penalizing people based on an honest mistake. I don't know any prospector out there who's wantonly and negligently going out attempting to destroy historical sites. In fact, I think much the same as hunters, generally speaking, love animals, we love history. We love the chase of that unknown that's out there in much the same way that the people who are looking after the land and the history do. It's just, it looks a little bit different from someone else's perspective when you have unqualified people going out there and digging in the soil to remove artifacts. And we don't know, we're not made aware of these obligations straight off the bat. It's something that we have to do a bit of guesswork around. And it's not until people like myself who have a voice within this industry bring this to people's attention that we can ever hope to come to some kind of understanding between all the parties. Because I personally know that digging up a piece of history is amongst the most exciting things you can do. Now, I'd like the opportunity for more people to experience that. And I also understand the need to make sure that it's regulated in a way that we don't accidentally lose or damage history that's instrumental and key to our understanding of our past.